Hey y'all, it's Tiffany. Just wanted to come and share this page today with you. I'm going to do in my illustrating Bible. Of course, you could do it in a sketchbook or any journaling Bible or wherever you want. And we're going to do some sunflowers with a real pretty plaid. And its focus is on gratitude. And as we're stepping out of this Thanksgiving season, I just think it's so important to focus on gratitude, that it's not a seasonal thing, right? We all tend to get a little bit more thankful and a little bit more in the festive spirit around Thanksgiving and even going into Christmas. But really, we're called to be thankful all year round. We all have so much to be thankful for, no matter what our circumstances are. So today I'm going to focus on Luke 17, verses 11 through 19 or so. And you can see I already went ahead and underlined it with an extra fine green Posca pen. And I have a little doodle of a sunflower because that's going to tie into the page that we do over here. So before I cover this up to do our painting, I just want to read a couple verses to you. It says, "While traveling to Jerusalem, he passed between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men with leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and raised their voices, saying, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' And when he saw them, he told them, 'Go and show yourselves to the priests.' And while they were going, they were cleansed. But one of them, seeing that he was healed, returned, and with a loud voice gave glory to God. He fell face down at his feet, thanking him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus said, 'Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Didn't any return to give glory to God except this foreigner?' And he told him, 'Get up and go on your way. Your faith has saved you.'" So all 10 seemingly believed that Jesus was the Son of God, that he had the power to heal them, and cried out for his mercy and his healing. But only one of the 10 actually came back to say thank you after his healing. And I know for me, sometimes I can be guilty of that, of asking God for help. And then when my prayer's answered, sometimes it's a little easy to forget to stop and say thank you. Or maybe it's a little bit delayed anyway. So I just think it's so important to focus on that gratitude, because when you have a spirit of thankfulness, of gratitude, the overflow of that is not only a change in your disposition, right? It's kind of hard to be depressed and thankful at the same time. It also results in kindness towards others. When you're grateful for everything you have and you're grateful for what God has done for you, it's easier to be kind to those difficult people, right? And that's what God calls us to do. So I've got a piece of paper behind my page so I don't paint my pages together. And I'm going to take a piece of paper and just mask off the words here, because I want to have a clean edge, and I don't want to have to worry about painting into the words. That's just my preference. I like to keep all the words easy to read. So I'm just got some washi tape. This is not real sticky, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you have washi tape that's maybe as sticky as it should be, just rub it on back your hand a couple times, or maybe on your pants, to keep it from sticking too much, so you don't have any issues with ripping your page when you pull the paper off. Okay, so I'm just gonna run a line of tape right there. And now I don't have to worry about what goes on this side of the page. So what I want to do is actually based on a page I've done before in this verse. The one I did before had a very kind of spring color vibe. I'm going to try and show that to you guys right here. So it had spring colors and flowers and a little thank you card attached. So I'm going to do a similar thing, but with more fall colors and some sunflower. And this one, I'm going to do a thank you card, but I'm going to make it where it can open, so I can write some notes of thanks, some private journaling that wouldn't be visible from the top of the page, which is a great way to include some more private notes or things in your Bible when you're journaling, if you want to kind of keep them to yourself if other people are picking it up. All right, so I've got some acrylic craft paints and just some random paint brushes that I grabbed, and I'm going to start out by doing a kind of a plaid background. And this is not going to be a real how should I say it, a real neat, symmetrical plaid, y'all. This is more of a loose, whimsical plaid because I'm not gonna worry about super straight lines or everything being even. I just want the look of it. A lot of it's gonna get covered up with the sunflowers, and I just want it to be fun and enjoyable while I'm doing it. So if you wanna worry about making your lines straight or breaking out a ruler, you feel free. That's just not really my vibes. I'm gonna take a flat brush, and I've got just kind of assorted a couple shades of green that I'm starting with. You can see these are different brands. I usually just use Craft Smart or Apple Barrel, or this, the Anitas I get from Hobby Lobby. Kind of whatever's handy. They're all pretty cheap. Come in all sorts of colors. Don't bleed through your Bible pages. So those are all kind of fun to use. So I'm gonna start out with this big fat brush. See, I'm already wiggly, so y'all can tell why I'm not worrying about making it straight. And I wanna load enough paint on there, and I may have to do a second coat, that's okay if I do. But I wanna load enough paint on there where it's not super streaky. So I'm gonna have some fat lines and some skinny lines, and basically my plaid I'm gonna do in shades of green to kind of mimic like the leaves and the stems of the background that you would see in a sunflower field. That's really all it is. You can use whatever colors you like. I'm gonna put another wide stripe right here. Again, this is a whimsical, wiggly plaid, y'all. Don't stress, okay? It's all about the process, not perfection, for sure. Now, just a reminder, when you are, drippage, when you're doing acrylic painting, make sure you have a jar of water handy. So when you're done with that brush, you can rinse it quickly, or if you're completely done with it, you can leave it in the water so it can get clean, because the longer that paint stays on there, it dries pretty quick and starts to get kind of crunchy. I tend to forget, and so that's why I remind people a lot, because it's something that I do quite frequently. So let's see. So I've got this other kind of smaller flat brush, so I'm going to try that in one of the other shades of green. I think I'll go with like this medium kind of grass green. And now you can see too, like this is a different paint. It's also more transparent. It's actually the same brand too, so you just never know. I want to make this a little wider than the brush, so this thing just kind of going over it, and it might overlap my other green, and I'm okay with that. Before I'm done, it may end up as fat as the other one, so. So obviously we're just doing our vertical stripes, and then we'll come back with the horizontal ones. Again, I'm not worried about making these even. It's all just for some nice color in the background. Fun way to do this. Helps if you make sound effects, by the way. Okay, I'm just gonna flatten out a nice little blend there. I just don't want any ridges. Sometimes where you get that paint piling up, you get some ridges. Oh, it just started raining. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but I'm by a window, so if you can, that's what's going on. I'm going to rinse that one. I'm going to use my skinny brush again, except making some skinnier lines. I've got a paper towel just to blot the extra water off so my paint doesn't get too runny. I'm going to come in here with this lighter green. So I've got kind of a light green, a medium green, paintbrush is peeling, and a dark green. But again, you could pick different colors. You could pick 3 shades of the same color. You can pick more than 3 colors, whatever you want to do. Nice thing about this is when they do overlap, if you're using similar colors, you don't have to worry about making like yucky brown mess. So there is that. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry for a second. Actually, I'll probably just break out my heat gun here right after I fix this smudge. Like a little bit of a ridge, a little smudge. So like I said, acrylic does dry pretty quick, but usually you got a couple minutes to kind of flatten things out or correct things. And the nice thing about acrylic paint is if you don't like what you did, you can paint right over it and nobody will ever know. So I'm just going to blast this with the heat tool real quick so we can do our horizontal lines without everything completely mushing together. And again, this is totally just for background, not worrying about perfection here. But I think the sunflowers we're going to do will pop nicely against the greens. And it gives it a little bit more of a fall touch than the page I showed you before. Of course, you could go super fall if you wanted, like oranges and browns and reds and things like that. Do whatever color you want. Whatever speaks to you, right? Okay, so I'm going to come back with my fat brush again. And pretty much just repeat the same thing, going the other way. Again, part of this is going to be completely covered up because we're going to have a thank you card down here. And then we're going to paint sunflowers on top of this. So, you know, again, don't worry about it too much. Now I have a little bit more water on my brush this time, which wasn't completely intentional, but it actually will make your cross stripes slightly more transparent. So it's actually working really well for this. It makes them a little more transparent, a little smoother going across. It actually helps the lines be a little straighter if that's something you're worried about. Because, you know, in plaids, a lot of times you can like see through some of the stripes from one layer to the next. So, and we may even come back with like another vertical line on top of it just to give it a little bit more layered look. I'm going to go into my medium green here. It's a little too wet and I need more paint. So the idea behind this really is that when I think about gratitude, one of the things I think about is thank you cards, which admittedly is kind of a lost art. I don't know how many of you guys send thank you cards for things. I know it's not something I've been in the habit of myself. But you know, there's something these days about just getting mail from somebody that's kind of amazing because it's become such an odd thing and unexpected. And it's nice to get things in the mailbox that's not a bill or junk mail. But even if you just write a thank you email or a thank you text or a thank you Facebook message or whatever, however you communicate with people. Because a lot of times I know in our minds we're thankful, but sometimes we forget to tell the other person. And it can go a long way with somebody to realize that whatever they've done, whether it's small or big, is just super appreciated. So I'm going to grab that light green, come across here. Okay, so how much fun is that? And I think I'm going to come down maybe with this dark stripe over the top again, just to kind of make it look like it's a little bit more woven together. I didn't dry that first, but that's all right. I think it's kind of cool looking. I don't know. What do y'all think? Let's see. Not bad. Tell when I do these things, I only kind of have a loose idea in my head of what I'm gonna do. How I do it is always a little up in the air. I don't know about y'all, but first of all, if your plan's kind of loose, you don't feel bad if it doesn't work out, because you weren't holding on to it all that tight anyway, right? Okay. So there we go. So there's kind of our plaid. I know I keep going back and forth. I probably should have planned this better, but I think I'm going to come back now with my light one again. What do you guys think? Kind of come back over that. You can also do fun plaids with watercolors, especially because they are transparent, so you get that see-through kind of look. Yeah. I'm just going back and forth on this a little bit until I like the way it looks. And yes, now I'm going to come back with the green, with the grassy green. And then we're going to be done, I promise, and we'll move on to the flowers. Yeah, I'm not really loving that. Okay. You know what? We're gonna blot that up a little bit in a couple spots because it's still wet. Touch it up and then leave it alone, because I think I'm getting a little too carried away and thinking about this too hard. So again, keep that in mind. You can blot things up, you can dry it and paint over it. I'm just going to smooth that light green out. I don't actually mind the texture of where I blotted it. I think it looks kind of cool. And I think I'm just going to leave it alone, because I keep saying this is just going to be background, so I think I'm messing around a little bit more with it. But you know what? I like that texture, so I'm going to blot it first. So that kind of may have been a happy accident. I like breaking up that plaid a little bit, since we weren't trying to stay real symmetrical anyway. Yeah, I like that a lot better. So pulling a Bob Ross, happy accidents. Blot it with a paper towel. Yeah, see? All right. So I'm gonna heat that up real quick, and then we're gonna do our sunflowers and add our little thank you card. So again, anytime that you're Bible journaling, I know I keep saying this, but it is not about the process. It is about the process. It's not about perfection. It's really about just tapping into that creative spirit. There's a sense of freedom in that. God created us to create. Because He is the ultimate creator, and we are created in His image. And the way our minds work, even if you don't consider yourselves artistic or creative, when you incorporate something that involves your physical action of doing something, the visual of the color, the thoughts about an image and color placement, and you tie that in with scripture, with messages from the Lord, they're so much more impactful and just stick with you so much better. So that really is the purpose of this. It's not about making like awesome art pieces, although I'm sure Many of you do awesome art pages. But that's really the heart behind it, is that the time with God in creating, meditating on His Word a little longer, letting it sink into your spirit, and letting that creative flow tie everything into your heart. So just a reminder as we're doing this now, I'm sticking this down to my background paper. I'm going to do that. Okay. That's why it's important to put either a mat or paper. Waxed paper also works great behind your page, because obviously if that had been the next Bible page, they'd be starting to stick together by now. So I'm going to grab a big round brush, and I've got some shades of yellow, so I'm just using my fancy paper plate palette, some shades of yellow and an orange, and I'll grab some brown here in a little bit. I'm going to start with my sunflower petals, and usually I like to just grab a couple shades of the same color to paint with. When I'm doing things like flower petals or leaves, I just think it gives like a nice effect. Now, of course, because we have this green in the background, it's going to take a couple coats. But when you have a round brush like this, you can use the shape of the brush. So when you hit it lightly, you're going to get that point, and then you press down and it spreads out, making it easy to make a flower petal shape or a leaf shape or whatever shape you're trying for. So use the brush to your advantage. That's kind of where I'm going with that. And again, if it doesn't come out the way you like, paint over it later. Okay, so again, I know I'm going to have to come back over these and do another coat, because this is thin paint and it's got a dark green background behind it. Now, I could have like penciled this out and painted around it, but that for me would be a whole lot more tedious, especially trying to do a plaid. I just don't see that happening. So the nice thing about having this paper there too is it's easy to continue your shape so that they look natural without having to worry about going over. Okay, so there's kind of the shape of my sunflower. The middle will be brown. Let's see. My card will probably go about here. So I'm not too concerned about filling that area in much. And then I think I'll do one kind of peeking out down here. And again, I'm just grabbing a couple shades of yellow, starting at the tip of the petal, not pressing very hard. So I've got the nice point of that brush, and then pressing down and pulling up. And then because I want a wider petal, I can go and make it a little wider after I get the placement. Also, you'll see in this case, I am leaving the ridges of paint because I really actually like that texture. I didn't want it in the background since I was going to paint flowers on top of it, but I do like that fun texture it makes by leaving some of that acrylic, those little ridges on there. And we got some little petals peeking out behind. Right. I'm going to pick up a little lighter yellow, although I don't know if it's really going to show yet, and kind of do like a sunflower that would be on the side. So, and this is the first coat, so the brown part's going to be here, but I'm not real worried about this one in particular. Okay. Just kind of putting our first coat down. Putting petals, like I said, little petals in between the big petals. Okay. Again, honestly, you could do the same method for Christmas. You could do poinsettias like this. It's a pretty simple flower type deal. Like I said, the big thing is just get a round brush and start playing with it. Use the shape of the brush to your advantage. So I'm gonna grab a stiffer brush for the brown, one of these that I used for the plaid, and put that in, and then we're gonna dry it and add our another layer. So I've got a dark brown, and I'm also gonna use a little bit of black just to get some variance, maybe some orange. Let's start with brown and orange and we'll see how it goes. Okay. And I'm just kind of gonna dab it on for those middles. And sunflowers have pretty big centers, right? A little bit of orange in there just so it's not like a big brown blob. You could do a little black, a lighter shade of brown, kind of whatever you want. We're just going to kind of stipple it, which is kind of pouncing the brush to make little dot or spotlight shapes there. Okay, so I don't want it to get too smushy. Make this a little bigger so it looks more sunflower-ish. Although you could totally make daisies or black-eyed Susans with a smaller center. Okay, throw it out in my water so it doesn't get all dried up. I'm going to dry this layer. I'm going to add another layer of the yellow and then add our thank you card. So again, if you're doing this at home, you totally don't need to heat dry it if you don't want to, or you can just use a regular hair dryer since you're just doing it with paint. Although these heat dryers are great because they don't blow a lot, so they're made for things like embossing powder, where you can't have the air from a hair dryer blowing everything around. They're also a little hotter. But use what you have, or you can just wait. Like I said, just be patient, get a cup of coffee, and then come back and paint your other layer. No biggie. Yellows, by the way, also tend to be more transparent in most paints. And so just be prepared that if you're doing them on a dark background, you're going to have to probably do more than one layer. So, side note on that. Get my brush, and I want to get most of the water off that because, again, I don't want this paint to be too thin, especially since we're trying to cover. Grab some yellow. And I don't mind a little green showing through because, again, that kind of would be the leaves, and parts of the sunflower sometimes are a little green too, but I don't want it to be completely transparent. So you can see I'm putting it on kind of thick. Again, getting that texture in there. Mix a little orange in. Again, you gotta play with your colors a little more on the top layer. If you're doing a base coat, you don't need to worry too much about different shades of color, because that's really just going to get covered up by the top coat. Just kind of gives you a place to start. All right, so I think those are looking a lot better. Unless I just kind of trying to remember which petals are on top and which ones are underneath. Right, so we are getting there, y'all. And again, I'm just placing my brush in like a lighter yellow and maybe picking up a little mustard yellow. Every now and then I'll grab a little orange. So I feel like you have to do each color individually or add that in there, but by picking up a couple different shades, it just gives it a little more dimension instead of just being like a solid flat yellow look to it. I think that brown covered pretty good, so I don't know that we need to go over that too much. again, we'll just pick up over here. Maybe, okay, so if it was on the side, the petals would be sticking up a little bit over that. Again, we can go off our page because we have that paper behind it, so it's no big deal. Grab a little more, grab a little orange for these guys down here. Oop, it might be a little too orange. Let's go back to some more yellow. And you can see all I'm doing is just playing with the pressure of the brush to get these petals. I'm not worried about going over the bottom layer exactly because again, that gives me a little extra texture, a little more depth. Okay, a little more yellow over here because I think I got carried away with the orange, although some sunflowers can be very orange. Okay. Boop. All right. Just gonna dab around these edges a little bit, maybe come back in with a little more brown. Okay, grab my scruffy brush one more time, dab a little bit more brown in, grab a little bit of that orange. Just that way the center also looks like it's coming out of the flower, which is how sunflowers kind of work. Just give that a little bit more dimension. And again, I like that little bit of orange in there, kind of like a highlight. All right, so we're gonna dry it. And let's see. Actually, I'm gonna put some stems on here. Just some light kind of lines. I don't know how much this will end up showing, but just so they don't look like they're completely floating out here. Let's see. Some leaf shapes in there, just really lightly. So they look like they're connected to something somewhere. Okay. For some reason, for me, that just helps them look a little bit more grounded. Not like they're floating too much on this plaid background. Okay. Let me dry that one more time, and then we can take our paper off and do our thank you card. And you could totally, if you wanted to add more detail, you could come back with a Posca paint pen, with some like Stabilo crayons, anything like that. And I might do that later, we'll see. Just add a little more texture to the flowers, but you certainly don't have to. The acrylic paint is just fine the way it is. And we want to get this pretty dry, especially here in the middle, because that's where we're going to glue our card down. And I also don't want to put my hand through it and smudge anything. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. So again, because it wasn't super sticky, we have a little rough edge there. It doesn't bother me at all. The point was I didn't have to worry about covering up those words. So I've got a little piece of cardstock that I already pre-cut, just a rectangle, folded in half. In a second, we're gonna stick it maybe around there. I don't know. Maybe here, maybe here. We'll figure it out. Probably somewhere around there. So what I'm gonna do first though is just write thank you on it. So I want it to look like a thank you card. And I'm gonna use, just as a guideline, this lettering from the page that I did before. I'm gonna pencil this in so that it all fits on the page. Again, this is pretty much just basic cursive lettering. And then I'm going to use a Tombow Food No Suke brush pen. These are great. This is the hard tip. Just to give it that kind of more hand lettered feel, so you can push down on the down strokes. And the nice thing is you can really do this with any pen and just come back. Ooh, got paint on it already. Come back and touch up your downstrokes and fill them in as you want. All right. So I'll touch this up a little bit once I'm done. Ooh, I'm bending my page. Let's move this over a tad. I think I'm getting spots on this, so we may have to do a little splatter to make that look like it was intentional. So you can do like hand lettering, you can use your own, just your regular print writing, you can use stamps, whatever you want to do. Like I said, really the idea in my mind was just for it to look like a thank you card, like something you would buy. Just to have that vibe. It's not about trying to be fancy. So I'm just going over this because some of my lettering is a little sketchy there. Make it a little bolder. All right, so I'm going to erase my pencil. And you do want to make sure that the black ink is dry. This pen dries pretty quickly, but depending on the pen you're using, you do want to make sure it's fully set before you go rubbing an eraser over it. Okay, and now since I have these little spots on here, let's see, grab my round brush real quick. Let me get it a little bit wet and grab a little bit of my yellow paint and see if I can make some little splatters. So I'm just tapping my brush lightly. If you have like a toothbrush or a stiff scrubby brush, you can also flick the bristles, which usually makes a little finer splatter. I'm gonna do some on the background so everything looks a little cohesive and it actually adds a fun thing to it. Dry that real quick. dry this one too, huh? So we're going to glue him on here. In my own time, I'll go back and journal on the inside. Some things that I'm thankful for lately. I'm just going to stick that down with a glue stick as soon as I find it. Okay. You can use whatever adhesive works for you. I just use an Elmer's purple glue stick. Always seems to work well. Okay. Stick that down. That purple was a little glue that got on the front, apparently. No big deal. I'll wipe what I can off of that, and if it stays sticky, I can always come back with a little bit of cornstarch or baby powder to get the sticky off. All right, y'all. So you could definitely add lettering or journaling here. I might do that after the fact. I'm gonna, guess I'd do my kind of private journaling on the inside, and we'll see what happens. But I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to stay grateful and be kind all year round, even after we're past Thanksgiving. So I will see you soon. Bye.